What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with reactions to the classics. Today we got a reaction to Blondie's iconic album, Parallel Lines, brought to us by our patrons. And the way it works, I put up on Patreon an exclusive poll to only Patreon members where they can vote, but they choose between two albums, and I do an album reaction to it. It stays up on Patreon exclusively for many, many months. So if you'd like to be a part of that in any way, check out that Patreon link below, the Patreon link on the end screen. They program almost the entire channel. Could not do it without them. If you'd like to support us with a one-time gift or one-time reaction, check out our Buy Me a Coffee page. All right, I did a Blondie top 10 a while back from one of our patrons, Evan David, fantastic top 10, but never done any albums, done some song battles and song reactions, but that's it to Blondie. I've listened to this album maybe once, maybe I've never listened to the entire album, so I know some of the songs, and some of the songs will have appeared on the Blondie top 10. I don't remember which ones exactly, but let's jump into a little bit of the research. Blondie is an American rock band formed in New York City in 1974 by singer Debbie Harry and guitarist Chris Stein. They were a pioneer in the American New Wave genre and scene of the mid-'70s. Their first two albums contained strong elements of punk. This is their third album. Although successful in the UK and Australia, Blondie was regarded as the underground band in the US until the release of their critically acclaimed third album, this one. They disbanded after the release of their sixth album, The Hunter, in 1982. Debbie continued to pursue a solo career with various results after taking off years to care for her partner Stein, who was diagnosed with pemphigus, a rare autoimmune disease of the skin. The band reformed in 1997, achieving renewed success and their sixth #1 single in the UK with Maria in 1999. Exactly 20 years. That's kind of crazy. After their first UK #1 single, Heart of Glass. They toured and performed throughout the world during the following years and was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame all the way back in 2006. Sold over 40 million records worldwide. Their 11th album, Pollinator, came out in 2017. This album, third studio album released in September of 1978 by Chrysalis Records, an instant critical and commercial success, reached #1 in the UK where they had much more success and proved to be the band's commercial breakout in the US where it reached #6. And Billboard magazine was listed as #9 in its top albums year-end chart of 1979. Their second album, Plastic Letters, in 1977, was their last album produced by Richard Gottheimer, whose sound had formed the basis of their new wave and punk output. During a tour of the west coast of the U.S. in support of that album, Blondie encountered Australian producer Mike Chapman in California. Peter Leeds, who was Blondie's manager, conspired with Chrysalis Records to encourage Chapman to work with Blondie on new music. Drummer Clem Burke recalls feeling enthusiastic about the proposition, believing Chapman could create innovative and eclectic records. However, lead vocalist Debbie Harry was far less enthusiastic about his involvement, as she knew him only by reputation. According to Chapman, her animosity towards him was, quote, because they were New York, I was L.A. Harry's cautiousness abated after she played Chapman early cuts of Heart of Glass and Sunday Girl, and he was impressed. Now, I'm not going to go into all of it. There's some wonderful stories from Chapman about the band and the recording process and just how inept they were. But he found them difficult to work with. Remember them as the worst band he ever worked with in terms of musical ability. Now, think about that. They already had two albums and they were out touring. It was the worst band he'd ever worked with musical ability, although praising Frank Infante as, quote, an amazing guitarist. Sessions with Chris Stein were hampered by him being stoned during the recording, and Chapman encouraged him to write songs rather than play guitar. Similarly, according to Chapman, Jimmy Destry would prove himself to be far better at songwriting than as a keyboardist, and Clem Burke had poor timing playing drums. As a result, Chapman spent time improving the band, especially Stein, with whom Chapman spent hours re-recording his parts to ensure they were right. Bassist Nigel Harrison became so frustrated with Chapman's drive for perfection that he threw a synthesizer at him during recording. Chapman recalls the atmosphere at the record plant where they were recording it in an interview for Sound on Sound. He said, the Blondies were tough in the studio, real tough. None of them liked each other except for Chris and Debbie, and there was so much animosity. They were really, really juvenile in their approach to life, a classic New York underground rock band, and they didn't give an F about anything. They just wanted to have fun and didn't want to work too hard getting it, end quote. Chapman took an unorthodox approach when recording with Harry, whom he describes as, quote, a great singer and a great vocal stylist with beautifully identifiable voice. However, also very moody, end quote. He was far more cautious of demanding much from her, as he saw her as a highly emotional person who would vest these emotions in the songs that they made. He remembers Harry disappearing into the bathroom in tears for several hours at a time during recording. During a day of recording, she sang 2 lead parts and some harmonies, less work than she did previously. This was due to Chapman encouraging her to be cautious about the way she sang, particularly to recognize phrasing, timing, and attitude. Despite Blondie's belief that Parallel Lines would resonate with a wider audience. Chrysalis Records was not as enthusiastic. When they got the album, Chrysalis told them they needed to start again, only be dissuaded by Chapman's assurance that his singles would prove popular. If they wouldn't have had Chapman as producer, they probably would have had to scrap this entire album. It took its name, this album, from an unused track by Harry, the lyrics of which were included in the first vinyl edition of the album. The album was met with universal acclaim from critics, 146 in the Rolling Stones top 500 albums of all time, and 45 in NME's top 100 albums of all time. So one of the most acclaimed records that we have not done yet on the channel, but we are going to remedy that now. It is so interesting that they were so inept musically, right? But they somehow managed to pull it together for success. We will not have the music in the video, but we will have it in the Vimeo link below. Let's jump into it. And we'll start with the album opener, Hanging on the Telephone, written by Jack Lee. It was released in 1976 by a short-lived U.S. West Coast power pop band, The Nerves. In 1978, it was recorded and released as a single, of course, by Blondie. Blondie had discovered the song on a cassette tape compilation given to the band by Jeffrey Lee Pierce. Beginning with the phone sound effect courtesy of producer Mike Chapman, the single was a top 5 hit in the UK and since has critical acclaim as one of the band's best songs. Didn't chart in the US. Interesting thing on that phone effect here, it's different in the UK and the US. It has the sound of what the phone's ringing then would have sounded like. All right, I'm going to the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, patron. Just what you want on an opener. Short, energetic. Debbie sounds fantastic. It has a weird drumming pattern to it. It's a double backbeat rhythm, meaning the offbeats alternate between a quarter note and 2 eighth notes. You're also going to hear that on a much later song, Sunday Girl. It gives it that unique sound. Next up, we have One Way or Another, written by Debbie and Nigel Harrison. Lyrically is inspired by Debbie's experience with a stalker in the early 1970s when she was in her former band, an incident which forced her to move away from New Jersey. 4th single went to 7 in Canada. This song only went to 24 in the US. This album is some of my earliest memories of music, right? Listening to these songs on the radio. It seemed like these were on there constantly, and they sounded so much different that it sticks out in my mind. But 24, I would have thought it was higher. One Way or Another, interesting arrangement on it. Like when you listen to it through the headphones this way, you know, I've listened to it that way before. But it's a good song. It's not a great song, and I would have thought it was a great song just from my memory. But you know, Debbie talked about the fact this is obviously a scary thing when someone's stalking you, and I don't know how seriously they took that in the early 70s, the police, right? There's been obviously a lot of bad things that have happened with that since and coverage of it, and people are more aware of it, but I don't know how seriously they took it then. But she said she was, you know, really freaked out by it. Obviously, she moved, but she said she kind of wanted to make it a little lighter in this song. She says kind of the way you cope with it. So good job on this one. Next up, we have Picture This, written by Debbie. Chris Stein, Jimmy Destry. Features evocative lyrics of producer Mike Chapman, surmise written by Harry about Stein. Releases the lead single in the UK and Europe, reached number 12 on the UK charts. Picture This, probably written about Chris from Debbie. Talking about in the shower. Chapman actually said that. I don't want to see him in the shower, but apparently Debbie does, and he liked the song. It's a good song. I thought the bass line by Nigel Harrison was really good. That was the standout. Next up, we have Fade Away and Radiate, written by Stein. Robert Fripp, of course, the man behind King Crimson, one of the greatest guitarists ever, was brought in to add guitar textures to the track. His contribution was entirely improvised. They played the track for him once. He laid this down in one track. It was so good, Chapman didn't even ask him to redo it, so just keep that in mind. Fade Away and Radiate, most interesting song, structurally wise. Debbie's voice in a little different octave. She sounds really good, but different in this. Robert's guitar work is definitely fantastic. It's not even going to be one of my favorite songs, but it is the most interesting song musically so far. Brings us to the 5th track, Pretty Baby, written by Stein and Debbie. All right, Pretty Baby. I didn't like it that much at the start. It grew on me, right? The little call and response and the Pretty Baby. It grows on you. Pretty good song. And the last song on side 1, written by Frank Infante. I know, but I don't know. Right, I know, but I don't know. Frank Infante. The guitarist singing co-lead vocals on there. I think this is an example of, as you've seen from the songwriting that I've listed before every song, I think they let everybody get a little turn on things. This must have been Frank's turn because this song's a throwaway for me, but they must have thought something of it because it's the old days of the vinyl, right? And so they usually try to sequence a good song at the start so you keep listening and a good song to end the side so you would be motivated to flip it over. And this is the end of side 1, so maybe there's something I'm not seeing on here. We'll start out side 2 with the Destry written song, 1159. All right, 1159, a song that also grew on me. I didn't know what I thought of it at first, but it did grow on me. Jimmy Destry, of course, wrote it. So the keyboards are going to be strong. You know, if you write it, you're going to put in your instrument at the forefront, which is fine, but I thought Debbie did a really good job on that. Songwriting, it's okay. It's all right. Next up, we have Will Anything Happen? All right, Will Anything Happen? Another song, I didn't know what I thought of it, and it grew on me, which is what many of these songs are doing. A well-written song, saying how she thinks this guy's a great guitar player. If he makes it big, will he forget about her, basically? That's kind of what it's about. Next up, we have Sunday Girl, written by Chris Stein. Inspired by Debbie's cat, who was named Sunday Man. The cat had recently run away, inspiring the song's, quote, plaintive nature. It's released as a follow-up single to the band's #1 hit single, which is coming up next in the UK and Europe, though not in the US. The single was a #1 hit in the UK and Ireland, reached a top 10 in several European countries. So it's kind of crazy they didn't release it in the US. This song is, I don't remember it, but it's actually featured on a song battle that one of our almost OG patrons, Deep Blue, did back in the day. So shout out to him. All right, Sunday Girl. Really good song. Loved everything about it. The guitar work, the drumming. Debbie sounds fantastic. Very catchy. Just had a unique vibe to it. So super enjoyed that one. Now a song that seemed to be on the radio all the time when I talked about when I was a kid. Heart of Glass, written by Debbie and Stein. Third single, reaching #1 on the charts in several countries, including the US and UK. 66 in the UK's official list of biggest selling singles of all time. Inducted in the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2015. Debbie herself stated this song and Rapture were her favorite songs and the songs she was most proud of writing. Rolling Stone ranked this at 138 on its list of 500 greatest songs of all time. At the time, Blondie was, of course, at the forefront, or one of the bands at the forefront of the New York's new wave kind of music scene. And when this song came out, they were, thought of as sellouts, and a lot of those fellow musicians in the new wave wouldn't talk to him anymore, but they were probably laughing all the way to the bank. All right, Chris got official songwriting on this, but Debbie also helped him write it because they talked about they started writing the song back in like 1974, and they just couldn't ever get it right. They tried it in many different ways, and then they eventually just called it the disco song. It sounds so much different than anything else on here. The octave that Debbie's had is so much different, but I mean, it's a classic song. You know what it is the second the first note hits. Really good. Next up, we have a cover. We have I'm Gonna Love You Too. It's a Buddy Holly cover, written by Joe B. Malden, Nikki Sullivan, of course, Norman Petty. Originally recorded by Buddy in 1957, released as a single all the way back in 1958. Now, the biggest hit from Blondie's previous album, Plastic Letters, was Dennis, a cover of a Randy and the Rainbows 1963 song, Denise. So Crystal's Records chose this one as the lead single, which is kind of crazy, to promote this album in the U.S. It failed to chart, so that was not a good idea, but they managed to survive it, obviously. All right, It's Fine. It's a song that was written in 1957. They do a good job with it. It's kind of funny, right, going from Heart of Glass, such a disco song, to this. The sequencing of this album is kind of funny, but how in the world could Chrysalis Records think this was a good way to represent Blondie, making this the lead single? Because the lead single is so important on any album. It's not as much now that they're leaked. 3, 4, 5 songs will be leaked out on Spotify before an album's ever released. But back then, like, the lead single was a huge deal. I'm glad Blondie could survive that. We're going to finish this off with a Debbie written song, Just Go Away. All right, we finished the album out with Just Go Away. Good instrumentation on here, right? Arrangement. Considering we're talking about how Chapman was saying the worst band he's ever played with, he spent a lot of time with each person trying to get their stuff down and sometimes recording it separately. And so you kind of feel it on this song. So a fine song. Now we're going to get to my favorite tracks. Honorable mentions, Hanging on the Telephone, One Way or Another. Favorite, Sunday Girl and Heart of Glass. We'll get to my overall score. I think this is a sum of the parts album, right? There's 12 songs. There's not very many standout songs for me. No songs are horrible. One of them was kind of pushing it, but there's nothing you go, oh man, that was really great. There's very few of those outside of my faves, and honorable mentions are good, but it's a sum of the parts. And I was alive then, but not enough to, go, oh, wow, this album's different. But it's going to be an 8.5 for me. It's a sum of the parts. Listen to the whole album. Really well done. And I told you with a lot of these songs, they grew on me as they went. So I'm sure on repeated listens, they grow on me much more. But great album, 12 songs, under 40 minutes, the way it should be. All right. Thanks to the patrons for bringing this one. Let me know your favorite track from Blondie down below. If you haven't already, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and check out that Patreon link if you'd like to be a part of these monthly polls. And until next time, guys, I will see you.